Most business owners blame marketing conditions, lead flow when sales numbers miss the mark. But if we're honest and if we're being real, 90% of the problem isn't external, it's actually internal. It's your sales team. You don't have a revenue problem, you have a performance problem, and you can't afford to ignore it. So if you're not holding your team accountable to results, you're subsidizing mediocrity. You are paying them for low performance, and they are costing you more money than they are actually making you, which costs you profit, and it is slowly killing your business. It's not okay. It's not, well, it's what we have right now. Slow growth is slow decline. No growth is fast decline. And it quickly turns into very rapid decline. So we're talking through how 5 reasons that your sales team is underperforming and how to fix it and fix it fast. And this can be fixed depending on your business in 1 quarter, in 2 quarters. The faster you take action, the faster you can fix this. But there are some specific strategies, some specific things you need to look at so you do this correctly. Whenever we look at fixing a business, and we've done turnarounds with businesses that have doubled in revenue within 6 months, but we look at how much disruption is this going to cause. So I want to preface this entire conversation with giving you the understanding that whatever you change in your business will cause friction, will cause disruption. So it has to be done correctly. And that's what we're going to walk you through here. The things you should look at and the things that you need to understand. Because here's what we've found with working with thousands of businesses and consulting directly in over 100 businesses. Sales is often treated like a support function. Even though most business owners know it's not a support function, it's meant to drive revenue. They often default to marketing driving revenue because marketing generates the leads, and then sales is a support function. So I want to differentiate between the two. Sales is not a support function. It does not support the business. It does not support marketing. Sales is the engine that drives revenue conversion. Marketing is the fuel that goes into that engine. So you've got to have the engine, you got to have the fuel. An engine with no fuel is useless. Fuel with no engine is useless. So marketing is the fuel, sales is that engine that actually directly drives revenue for service-based businesses. If you're in e-commerce or something like that, it's different. But if you're in a service-based business, you're in the trades, plumbers, agencies, businesses like that, your sales is the engine that drives the revenue. So you have to look at it as your growth engine. You don't scale by simply adding more leads and running fancier ads, because those may generate more leads. They may convert better on the attention to lead side, but if there's no one on the sales side to convert that, it doesn't matter. And here's what we often find. And I've been in sales for various sales roles and telemarketing, door to door, business to business, business to consumer, as well as on the marketing side. So I've seen the spread of it. And Kirk, who's on our team as well, our chief of people, long sales background, everything from selling Major League Baseball to selling consulting services. So we've all been in these sales roles, and what we've seen is that most salespeople, they're great at converting the cream of the crop. Take the cream off the top. These are the leads that are ready to convert now. But from a marketing perspective and statistically, that only represents about 3.5% of any, or rather 2.5% of any given market that will convert right away. Then you have those that will convert within 30, 60, 90 days. That's another 13.5%. So you're looking at about 15, 16% that will convert within 30 days and then within 90 days. That's only 15, 16% of your conversion. The other 80%, which really is represented by 64% of any given market. And in marketing, we call this the early majority and the late majority. They are the majority. 68% of your target market will take 6, 9, 12 months plus to convert, which means when you're generating leads in right now, as we're recording this, it's the month of May. We're closing May. Leads that have been generated in May will close 15% within the month of May, June, and July. But 80% of that conversion is going to come in Q3 and Q4. This is why most salespeople underperform, because they only work the hot, quote unquote, hot leads. But your best leads are actually your older leads, the leads that are 90 days plus, because they have taken more time. They need more questions answered. Your fast converting are also going to be your fastest to not pay, request a refund, leave negative review, cause problems. So you have to have both. You get that 15% to keep the lights on, but that 85%, that's what really creates depth and real profitability in your business and helps you lower your overall cost to acquire a customer. So this is a different perspective that sophisticated salespeople take, and you as a business owner have to understand this perspective. So you don't scale through fancier ads, you don't scale through more leads, you scale by tightening your sales performance and reducing the inconsistency. We're going to talk about the inconsistency because a good salesperson, it is better to have a salesperson who is somewhat in the middle, but they're consistent every month, rather than a salesperson who gets 2 sales one month and then 11 sales the next month and then 7 and then 3 and then 12. It's all over the place. It creates inconsistency, which creates chaos in your business. You need consistency. If your business is a boat in the ocean, you want smooth sailing waters. You don't want crazy tsunami wave and swells. That's where it gets really chaotic and creates instability in your business because you have low months, decent months, and high months, and it's completely unpredictable. A lack of predictability creates chaos, and that is not stability. You cannot scale without predictability. So stability, predictability, and that those both require consistency. Your sales team, if they don't have accountability, clarity, and KPIs, metrics they know they need to hit that are hard metrics, and then they just become a payroll expense. And what happens is your sales actually then is not a profit center. It becomes a cost center because you are paying to keep salespeople and they are not disproportionately generating revenue at a high profit like they should be, which means not only is sales a cost center, but because of the lack of conversion, your marketing now becomes a cost center instead of being a support to driving revenue. So let's dive into what are these 5 reasons and really the 5 fixes that turn your sales team into a high converting revenue and profit cash machine. And we're going to go a little in depth and really give you some things to walk away so you can evaluate. You can look at your data because there are 3 things in business you have to look at. Look at your data to determine your strategy, then you execute on that strategy and you review the data from your execution. So if you implement these 5 fixes over the next 30, 60, 90 days, look at the data. What's changing in your sales? That improves your strategy and you keep that cycle going so you're always improving. So we're going to give you the steps to do that. So the first thing is you got to stop managing feelings and start managing data. Here's what I've seen. Personally, transparently, I love people. Love to serve people, love to take care of people. I have a pastor's heart. Spent a lot of time as a pastor, over 10 years. In business, you need to care about your people, love your people. You need to care about your customer, but you have to make decisions based off of data, not feelings. It's the same thing if you're a parent, you have to look at it the same way. You can't parent your kids based on how you feel or feeling guilty or, oh, they're not happy with me. You've got to look at the data. You've got to think about what's best for them in the long run. And does a little pain now equate to more success and progress later? I mean, I could let my son eat all the sugar and all the candy and all the soda he wants, or I could deny him that, require him to eat healthy, and then in the long run, I don't have to, you know, send him to fat camp, however you want to think of it. Think about the long term for your people. So when it comes to reason number 1, it's that you're managing your feelings and the feelings of your salespeople rather than the data. If you keep it about data, it makes it easier to manage the relationship. So what this means is we're not making gut decisions. You're tracking weekly, what are they closing? You're tracking what is the revenue being generated per salesperson and what's the standard deviation. We'll talk about that when we talk about fix number 2. And it's a real simple explanation is what is the swing? Is it some months they're down by 4, other months they're up by 4? What is that swing? And the greater that gap, the more consistency you have. We'll dive into that. I'll actually bring on Tim, our CFO, and he'll break down the numbers for that of how we track it internally and how we help clients track it to create that stability and that predictability in their sales. You've got to set non-negotiable benchmarks for your salespeople, meaning what's the minimum revenue they need to generate so that they are covering the cost of their existence to your business. Then what do they need to generate to be making profit? And then what does that equate to in terms of deal volume? How many deals per month and how much revenue per month? Because you can look at both. If you have a business where every deal is not the same size, which is most businesses, you have different types of projects and offerings. It's not just the number of deals. Let's say your average is 5,000 and they need to generate 100,000. At 5,000, that's 20 deals. But if you also have a $10,000 or $20,000 offer, you teach your salespeople how to strategically look at what's in their pipeline. And if they hit 20 deals a month at the average of 5,000, they hit KPI. They hit 100,000. But let's say they got not 20 deals, but they got 15. But some of those were $10,000 deals. They still generated enough revenue to hit KPI. So it's being clear about what those metrics are. And salespeople, I say this as a salesperson still today, uh, the discipline and the sophistication comes when salespeople are honest. Salespeople will highlight the numbers. And I think we've all seen this. Salespeople will highlight the numbers that make them look good. Oh, I got 25 deals. Yeah, but they were all really small. So you didn't hit the revenue target. So you want to hold your salespeople accountable to the right metrics, but be clear with them about what those right metrics are. It's deals, it's number of deals, it's also revenue. It's also profitability. You have to be super clear and give this to your salespeople so they can perform, set them up to win. And in that, that means you have to know what healthy looks like. Define the numbers that indicate they had a strong week versus a weak week. You don't want a weak week, you want a strong week. So we'll say it this way: you can't just base targets on revenue projections. You also can't just base it on number of deals. You have to tie them to the real capacity of that salesperson, tie it to the margins, and look at the actual close rates. All these things are data points you look at. So the first reason sales teams aren't performing is you as a business owner are managing their feelings and your feelings. I don't want to push them too hard. I don't want to lose people. I feel guilty. I feel like I'm not setting them up for success. Okay, so set them up for success. Get over your feelings. Start leveraging the data because data doesn't care about your feelings. Take feelings out of the equation and use the data so you can be objective. Otherwise, you are underserving your people and you're underserving your own business. That's number one. Number two, the number two reason sales teams underperform is there's too much variability and there's too much inconsistency. So your average performance doesn't matter if there's too much of a swing. Meaning if you look at over the course of, let's say, 6 months, 2 quarters, and your average that you need to be profitable or to break even is five deals a month. That's what you need on average per salesperson. But if over the course of that month, some months were 2, some months were 7, and it was swinging all over the place, even though you averaged out and you hit the average target, your business is still going to feel the pain of either a lack of profitability, a lack of cash flow, and the chaos and problems that a lack of consistency creates. So you've got to build predictability in the performance by tracking it weekly. What's the consistency, not just monthly average? Averages look great, but you need a more granular view because if I say over the course of a year, on average, I've been on a fitness journey. So I've lost 25 pounds in the last 6 months, getting my fitness, getting back to training, feeling really good. Now I'm working on hydrating. But if I look at the course of the last 6 months and my weight went down 5 pounds, up 10 pounds, down 15 pounds, and I look and it's swinging all over the place, I'm actually very unhealthy, even though it may average out and look good. If I'm hydrating, I drink, your doctor says you should drink 8 cups of water a day. If I go through a week, on Monday I had 1 cup of water, Tuesday I had 5, Wednesday I had 3, Thursday I had none, Friday I had 6, Saturday I had 8, and then Sunday I had none. My average might be somewhere around 5, but that still means I'm going to feel like crap at the end of the week because it's what happened daily, and in sales, it's what happened weekly. So I'm gonna kick it over to Tim and have Tim walk through the numbers and give you a visual to really make sure this is clear, so you can walk away from this watching this training, and you can start making some decisions. You can evaluate where your sales team is actually at, because in order to fix anything, you have to understand, is your sales team consistent? Is there all of this variability? So I'll kick it over to Tim.
Thanks, AJ. Hey guys. All right. So as we start talking, how do we evaluate sales teams? It's really not only sales teams. It's anything and everything in your business that correlates around data, whether that be financial data or operational data. And the reason for that is when we look at businesses, we're looking for where is the average, where is their variability, and how can we change the variability into a positive nature. And so what we're having a conversation about is just the sales team's operational data. How many deals do they complete? But we also have to keep in mind what's the equivalent value of every deal? What is the average deal size that I serve to my clients and I extract value? How much I sell my products or services for? Because as we go through the operational data conversation, we aren't looking at the deal revenue size. We're only looking at the number, right? Yes or no. As we look at data and decisions, yes or no. Did they close something or did they not? And then we try to eliminate the it depends answer. I'm the master of it depends answer, but in this sense, it is either a yes or no stance. And so I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and give you a data set of about 8 numbers, and we're going to walk through and go through a really quick statistics class, but it's the walkthrough of what is the average of the 8 numbers, what's the min, what's the max, and how we'd look at this if this was a sales team's performance and really just one individual's performance, and then identify what would be the standard deviation of this data set and why it's so important. Because again, as operators in your business, the goal is that we're growing. And so it's also looking at this, what does this look like in one top down snapshot, but also in time, what does this look like? Am I growing or am I not growing based off the average of the data set? So we'll fiddle with the technology and then I'll go ahead and share out my screen.
While Tim's getting that up, here's why having a really competent at minimum, but sophisticated, preferably, financial stakeholder is so important. If you as a business owner, your job is to make decisions, and you make decisions based off of data, so you can determine what the direction is, and you can evaluate, approve, disapprove, and give feedback to revise strategy. You have to have your financial data. So if you're watching this and you are, regardless of your size, if you don't have a competent financial stakeholder who looks at your numbers and tells you, here's where you're at financially, here's what the story the data is telling, you don't have the data you need to make business decisions, which is like flying blind in a plane. You don't have the data. So regardless of your size, you need someone that can be a relative. If you can afford it, go get a fractional CFO, a CPA, somebody who's looking at your numbers and telling you, here's where you need to be, and they can set targets for you. As a business owner, you don't need to learn how to do that yourself, but you need to have someone. And for us, Tim's that guy. For our clients, Tim's that guy. And you're going to see just a real simple snapshot of the data once you see it, how you can make decisions based off of that. So, all right, Tim, I'll kick it over to you.
So as I typically say when I'm talking to operators, I need you to understand 60 to 80% of this, particularly when you're under $5 million and the financial stakeholder in your business, whether you have an outsourced resource or not, is you. You have to understand this because this is how we attack your business. This is how we evaluate your business. This is how we have an understanding of what your business produces so that it has the potential of being not just a hobby, but also a business that has something of value so that you can sell it later on or so that you can grow it. Because again, when outside users or investors look at your business and look at your financials, whether that be the P&L or the balance sheet, they look at it through the story of the numbers. And this is how they evaluate it. They look at the numbers and say, this is the data set I have, and this is the story that I believe they're telling you. And you must understand that language in order to be able to either correct the story based off their assumptions or give them the informed stance. So when we're looking at the data set here, I've got 8 numbers. And what I'm seeing right now, again, I've got a sum of 8 numbers at 49 and I have 8 numbers. So just rough math, I've got an average of about 5 or 6. But again, this is 8 months in time, just historically, what has this sales rep done? And so just visibly looking at these numbers, I would say that we have an average of anywhere from 5 to 6. I have a max of 10, and it happens twice. And if I have a product that I'm selling for $10,000, man, those 2 months, I made a killing. But what about the months where I didn't? Got a minimum of 3, which means I have a lot of variability in my business. Again, I have an average of 5 to 6, which means when we think about, okay, fixed costs or variable costs, again, if I have an equivalent value, I'm charging clients $10,000, I have variable costs in my business most likely. Again, what does it cost to deliver on this value? And if I have rough math, if I have to be staffed up to do 10 projects in a given month, but I also have to be staffed down to be profitable at 3 projects a month, that is way too much variability unless I have a business that is easily scalable or descalable based off of costs I have in my business. Again, we talk a lot with Kirk, how do we evaluate staff? Because we have conversation of staff is the easiest place to either grow really fast or cut really fast if we need to. Again, you don't want to have those conversations because they're very difficult and they hurt the greatest soft asset you have in your business, which is the culture. Because the more you do it, again, we're going through economically in the US right now, we're going through it where the tech companies, the largest tech companies, are sending out mass layoffs because that is their business model. They can rapidly scale when they have huge profits, and they can rapidly descale when they want to because they have that variability, that margin in the business. And so when I'm looking, first things I'm highlighting is what I think is the average, and then I'm highlighting the max and how often that max happens, and then I'm highlighting the minimum. And the entire reason for that is so that I can identify just visibly what do I see are trends in the data, and so that I have an understanding of what this equivalent value is. How much variability do I have in a dollar sign that says whether or not I have an efficient business or not an efficient business, or am I at risk of too much product being sold? Because again, when you're growing a stable business, you can have a month that operationally is the best month you've ever had. But if you don't approach it with strategy, that best month could wreck you because you have to scale your fixed costs in order to deliver on that best month. And in the event you don't do it and you don't consistently make your average, again, higher, you now have the risk that when your average drops back down, you lose even more money on your worst months. So again, standard deviation is how we look at that. So again, same data set. The average when you actually do the math is 6.1. The standard deviation is 3. And so what I mean by standard deviation is how much is there a range above this average. And so what this means is plus or minus 6, or plus or minus 3 in this case. And so when we think about this, that means that on this snapshot in time, the bell curve. Everybody remembers in high school where it's like, okay, what is the bell curve where we're looking at stats? Where do I sit in the grading criteria? Again, if you go to high school, the standard is a C, and you have some students that get A's, some students that get B's, some students that get C's, some get D's and F's. It's the exact same thought process here, except for from a standard deviation standpoint, we really care about where is the average result going to end up. In that case, it's like 65 to 70%. And so we have a standard plus 3 here and a standard minus 3 here, which means this dotted line represents my average of 6, which means based off of my 8 months historically, I know that I should land with a better than average confidence somewhere in here, which means I'm going to have a couple months where I'm over here and I had a killer month. And I'm going to have a couple months where I'm over here and I have a subpar month and I need to correct it, which means when I'm looking at the costs in my business model, I can allow myself to be less than profitable here. I must be profitable here, and I better be super profitable here. And I can allow for outsourced resources here so that those outsourced resources can be scaled up and scaled down based off of this number. I am budgeting for an average sales results. I am not budgeting for 10. Because again, if we go back to this, what is 6 plus 3? 9. 6 minus 3, 3. That means my business model must be profitable within that standard deviation, which means at 3, I'm breaking even. At 10, I'm outsourcing resources in order to deliver that client if I must. It would be great if I don't have to do that. But from a business standpoint, I don't hire anybody at 10. I just outsource it if I can, because it isn't far enough outside my average that I am willing to invest in the resources, because my business model has not proven that I can improve this average. And so this is a snapshot in time. But when we look at it, how do businesses grow? Businesses grow when it looks like a staircase in a perfect world, but it's not. Again, most businesses grow like this. We want them to grow like this, but on average, if you look at super granular data sets, they grow like this. And it's okay, it happens. So when we think about it, let's graph this out just from a standard. And you have plus. Again, please interrupt. If you interact with me a lot, you know that I talk really, really fast. If you have questions, AJ and Kirk are watching the chat. So again, if we graph this out, minus 3, plus 3. Okay, so 10 is up here. 5 is below the average. 9 at the line. 5 at below the average. 10 up here. 4 below the average. 3 and 3. This is a very variable business. And again, if we continue graphing this out, on average, we want to say this business is growing, but it's actually stagnant, because most of the numbers are down here, which means you're not beating your average consistently. And so from a data set standpoint, as we start mapping this out, the first thing we have to do is focusing on controlling the variability. And AJ said that standard deviation is how much of a gap you have, and that's a positive thing. It's actually a negative thing. The bigger your gap, the more dangerous your business is, because you have to build your costs based off your average. And if your average is, or your standard variance is too high, then the average doesn't meet the business's needs, which means you have to upscale your costs, which means you run the risk of, when you fall below your average, particularly if it happens consistently, that you are not profitable. And then you run the risk of losing money consistently, which is never a good sign. I'll kick it back to AJ and we'll really talk through how do we adjust our focus, not on selling more, but on taking the average and attacking that, because you want your average to go up. You want good months, but what you're really after is less bad months. And that sounds counterproductive, but that's really what we're after when we're attacking the averages. Back to you, AJ.
So Tim, I'm gonna have you keep sharing, because I wanna talk through an aspect of this. So if you can give us let's go to a blank screen, and then just draw 4 lines. So what I want to teach you guys is one of the frameworks that we teach within our phase 4 operating system. It's an operating system we implement for our clients if we're consulting. Draw them vertically, sorry. And we teach this within our phase 4 implementation program. Rotate that so that they're up and down.
I think we're proving why I'm not the graphic artist.
So there are, we call this framework the fortune formula. For, not FOR, but FOUR, because there are 4 levers in marketing and sales that you can pull within your business. Now, when we look at this, that first lever, if Tim, you can just label it in red, that first one on the left is simply more leads. 99% of the time, if a salesperson is underperforming, they will say, well, it's because I need more leads. Well, the question before you go to marketing and say, hey, we need to buy more leads, we need to increase ad spend, and Tim, we can just make a note on the above the line. what's the conversion rate of the leads that are coming in. This is how we evaluate it. So if they're saying we need more leads, before we pull that lever, we ask, what's the conversion rate? That second lever is better leads. So when we look at if the conversion is solid, let's say in your industry, and just kind of a universal average is 20-25% of leads. In service-based businesses, typically 30 to 40% makes more sense depending on what your sales process looks like. But uh, we'll just say call it 30%. So they need to be converting 30% at minimum. If they're hitting that, we still want to look at how we can increase that. But if they're hitting that minimum threshold, then we look at, well, do we need better leads? And that's where we start looking at how are we qualifying? So at the top of that level would be qualification. How are we qualifying what is a solid lead? And this can go back to marketing. It can go to questions a salesperson is asking. Salespeople need to give marketing the data. Are you asking the right questions? Or do we have a scorecard, which is something we teach our clients, for the four corners? What are the qualifying criteria? Meaning urgency. Do they have budget? Are they in the do they have the minimum requirements in order to do business with them? We've worked with pool builders, $35 million pool building company. And one of the qualifications is, does that homeowner have a survey so that we can assess if we can build a pool on their property? That third lever, let's say we're converting at 30%. We know that the leads are quality that are coming through, and we just don't have enough of them. Well, then we can increase the number of leads because we're profitable. But then we have to ask a third question, which is the third lever. And that is, what's the average conversion value of a lead that gets converted into a deal? So more leads, better leads, conversion value. Or to use financial language that Tim uses, what's the equivalent value? If we need to sell at an average of 150,000, say we're building pools, are the conversions averaging out to that number? If all three of those hold true, then we can look at the fourth lever, which is lifetime value. That's repeat customers. Depending on your business, it's either repeat customers or that customer's lifetime value can also be tied to referrals. Are we getting referrals from our customers? So we have to look at these levers before we start making these decisions. And here's the thing, it is impossible to do this if you're not tracking the numbers that Tim just walked through. If you don't know what the actual targets are. And so that's actually fix number 3. All right, Tim, thanks. We can stop sharing now. So that's fix number 3. Do you have real targets for your salespeople? Are they clear? Have you defined, based on what Tim said, what is the minimum standard? How many deals per week? How much revenue per month? If your rep misses, and here's where you got to make the hard decisions, and you got to go back to number 1, which is remove the emotion, manage data, not feelings. If you have a sales rep who is 3 months in and they miss targets, or they're a year in and they miss targets for 3 months, if you're coaching them and you're looking at it weekly and you're meeting with them, if they hit targets 3 months in a row, they're out, because their job is to produce revenue and not to be a cost. And so you can't continue to pay for them to exist in your business. A salesperson's job is to pay for themselves profitably to exist in your business, which means they're doing their job. So accountability isn't optional. Accountability is the only path in terms of managing your salespeople, leading your salespeople. It's the only path to being actually profitable. So again, if your salespeople, put it another aspect, if your salespeople aren't hitting at least 80% of a target by month 3, so maybe they just started. If they're in month 3, they're not hitting 75-80% of the revenue target, and they're not trending upward, then they're not on the team. And that's not cruelty, it's leadership. You just got to start cutting people, because that is the point of sales. That's why sales even in an organization, especially in an organization that has a really solid elite sales team, underperforming salespeople typically don't last more than 60 days. And often, if you have a really tight, dialed in onboarding process for your salespeople, you're giving them everything they need, you'll know within 30 days if you need to cut them. That's why sales has such a high turnover. So if your sales team's underperforming, Stop managing emotion, eliminate the variability, create consistency, which means you got to know your numbers. Based on those numbers, give your sales teams real targets, and then enforce them ruthlessly, not gently, not nicely, ruthlessly. You exist to, I mean, think about it. You got four tires on your car. If one of those tires is flat, one of those tires, the tread's almost gone, you're not going to be looking at that thing like, oh, I got three more. I can keep that one for a while. No, it's okay. No, because you might die. You get a tire blowout, you're dead. Your business is that car. Your salespeople are the wheels. Do not tolerate lack of performance because you're building a business. You're not just trying to give someone a job. If you really want to take care of them, either train them better or, as Kirk would say, release them to pursue their goals in another organization. So that's fix number 3. Real straightforward, real simple. Number 4 is upgrade your team. So notice all of these are building on each other. Fix number 4, you can't do without number 3, which you can't do without number 2, which you can't do without number 1. It's a structured, a chronological, logical sequence of steps to fix. So we're not only giving you 5 fixes, we're giving you them in the order in which you need to execute them. So number 4, upgrade your team, which means you're hiring sharks, not pets. Let me clarify that. You're hiring sharks, not pets. What does a shark do? If you watch, I mean, everyone loves Shark Week. I've literally never watched Shark Week, so I'm missing out. But Shark Week is a big thing. Why? Because people love to watch sharks eat. That's what sharks do. They are eating machines. They barely sleep. If it's a great white, most sharks, they don't stop moving. They will literally suffocate and drown if they stop moving because to get sciencey on you, the water moves through their gills. They absorb oxygen. They have to be constantly moving. Otherwise they die. That is a salesperson constantly closing. Otherwise they die or you cut them. Now take a goldfish. A goldfish is a pet. You expect no performance, you expect no production from it. It does not, it is not hunting and eating. It just exists there, waits for you to give it food. If you don't, you come back, it's belly up, you put it in the toilet, and you tell your kid that it went to goldfish heaven. You get another one, and don't tell your kid, and they don't notice. I'm gonna judge how you parent. Do it however you want. You want sharks, not pets. Hunter killer mindset means you've got a salesperson, they got an outgoing personality. They've got some charisma to them. There's a bit of a bravado. They need a little bit of ego. They need to believe they are a great white shark. Don't hire guppies. And we've made the mistake. I've made the mistake over the years working with salespeople, hiring salespeople. If you want to grow, you need someone that you're hiring not based on their likability, not based on their tenure. You're hiring closers with a hunger and skill. Hunter killer mindset is what we like to call it. And you got to pay what it takes to attract that talent that can move deals. Because a good salesperson, a great salesperson, regardless of what they cost you, will produce more than they cost. So they're an investment into your organization. They'll move deals. They won't just talk about it. Well, here's what's in my pipeline. The number of sales calls we've gotten or sales meetings where there's a sales manager and we've done this with clients and we've told clients you got to cut that person. They're not on the right seat. They shouldn't be managing the team. They shouldn't be on the sales team because every month it's did you hit targets? No. Why? There's just not enough leads. This and that. The economy. Blah blah blah. And then, well, what's needed? Well, I got a lot in my pipeline. Pipeline is a leading indicator, but it doesn't matter unless it's closing. If you got 10 million in the pipeline, but every month you're only closing 1 million, you got a problem. And this is why you got to have hard numbers and you got to be ruthless with your sales team. Ruthlessly support them and lead them and coach them, set them up for success, but then cut them quickly. And then you got to replace lowest performer. A recommendation every quarter. Who's your lowest performer? Now, if they're hitting KPI and they're profitable, don't necessarily cut them. Coach them up. But if there's a low performer and they're not performing, cut them and repeat that process until you have an elite team. This will create disruption, which means you have to be prepared, and that's why you have to know your numbers. All business decisions, you've got to base them on data. Data, strategy, execute the strategy, collect the data, improve the strategy, which improves the execution, gives you better data. If your salespeople treat selling like a side gig, you're paying hobbyists. You need killers, which is why most companies that have really elite sales teams, they either are 100% commission or it's a minimum wage draw every month. I'm not a big fan of, and I'll let Kirk speak to this. I'm not a big fan of paying salespeople a salary that's more than minimum wage because you're hiring them and they have to have an attitude. If I don't sell, I don't eat. Kirk, what's your take on that? Any insights to add on that?
Yeah, I'll borrow from Tim, but it depends with the industry. But I would agree with you in most cases. We want to provide a bedrock, if you will, but at the end of the day, they need to get their primary motivation, inspiration from hunger. So with your shark example, it is a constant moving. It's a constant looking. I'll be very frank. I would say hunter gatherer are the ones that dream about sales meetings. They are constantly thinking about what's the next way to get over the next objective or the next objection that I haven't heard today. And what objections did I get today that I got stumbled by? And it's a constant rinse and repeat of how do I, what did I do today? And then how did I get better? So I would say the top performers that I've ever been around in a sales environment are those that have either a 90-day draw that they're banking future commissions against, and it's a zero net for the business, or it's a very low salary, enough to cover, in essence, rent and a base meal plan, and the rest of it is commission. And I am all about uncapped commission. I want people to grind. I want people to win. I want the salespeople to be the best paid people in the organization. And I want them to have the humility of knowing that they can't sell a great service if we don't take care of the rest of the team. So it's all a life cycle, if you will, but at the beginning, the foundation of the business, that sales team, whether it's one person or it's a team of 10, it comes down to the tone setter at the top. So if you as the business owner are the best business or the business development, if you're the best salesperson, awesome. You need to be the tone setter for the sales team. If you're not sales and you got into business owner as the best technician, you need to set the tone, but you also need to set the expectation, accountability, and discipline for your sales team and what they should come to expect from you and what you come to expect from them.
Absolutely. And I'll add a caveat to that and another layer. And this is going to sting for most business owners, but this is how you have to decide, are you committed to you just getting paid or are you committed to growing a business that serves you long term? We've seen businesses crash and burn and be in financial struggle, financial ruin, and that we've had to turn around because of business owners who were taking too much money out of the business and not leave money in the business. So depending on the state of your business, if you don't have a really solid sales team, you should be okay taking a modest salary, leaving money in the business, and having a salesperson or salespeople who are actually making more money than you are if they are producing. Because that's what you need. You need your business to produce cash. Take a minimum what you need. You don't need a jet. You don't need a fancy car. You don't need a lavish lifestyle. You're building for the long term. If you want to be short sighted, cool. Go buy a Lambo and then go broke with your Lambo and then get it repossessed and end up driving a Toyota anyway. Or leave money in the business, pay your salespeople, pay them really well because they are producers and that's what you need. So you think of it this way: if you got cattle, feed your cattle well, even if some days you don't eat, because you need them to get fat and to grow, and then you can eat. Hunter killer mindset. So now wrapping up with the last fix, we to quick recap. Number one, stop managing feelings, start managing the data. Take that data, look at it, identify where the variability is. Are you having big swing months up and down? Create consistency. Do that by setting real targets based on that data that you have now looked at, and then hold the standard, measure your salespeople against that standard, upgrade your sales team, create an elite sales team, cut the pets, cut the goldfish, keep the sharks, recruit more sharks, cut those who prove not to perform at the minimum level that's needed, which means the bar keeps going up. You could have a salesperson who's been performing okay for years, and now the bar's raised and they're no longer performing. Either put them in a different seat where they can be more valuable, or release them to pursue greater opportunities in other organizations. And number 5 that stacks on top of all of that is align your strategy for business growth with the reality of your sales, not the delusion, not the hope. Hopes and wishes are not a business strategy, unless your business strategy is how do I take my business and make it go broke as quickly as possible. Then you will absolutely succeed at that. And many business owners do. In fact, most of them do. Only 1% of businesses ever break 10 million. And those are the hopes and wishes businesses. So your growth strategy, you've got to build it on actual sales performance, which means you need to know the sales performance. You need to see the data. You need to have a hard line with sales. Price increases. You can increase your prices, which helps. So you got to know your industry. You've got to know how profitable you are. What does it cost you to deliver? Tim mentioned that the more you sell, the more your fixed costs go up. Meaning, if your cost to deliver on a $100,000 project is $50,000, well, if you sell $1 million, you now increase your cost from 50,000 to half a million. So you've got to understand that. And if you have big swings, that's going to create chaos, because delivering more deals costs more money, requires more people. And you can't have those big swings and hire people 1 month and then you got to let them go the next month and hire again. You won't grow business, and you ruin your brand reputation. People won't want to work for you. So increase your prices, but you need to, if you increase prices, that's one lever. You also need volume. Otherwise, you'll flatline. So revisit your sales organization, your sales organization model. What is your compensation plan? And what is your lead management process? We don't have time to get into that. Those are all different strategies, frameworks that we teach. We're giving you the fixes here so you can start at this point and implement these things and get the clarity to then go deeper. Your sales strategy doesn't start with a vision board. It starts with brutal clarity about your team's real output. So scrap the vision board, burn it, go and sell. Hold your sales team accountable. Those are the 5 fixes. Those are the 5 problems. Implement those in that order. They all build on each other, and that's going to put you in a much, much better place. So I want to wrap up for you guys by giving you 5 questions to ask to diagnose your sales performance and your salespeople. Even if this is you, take a look in the mirror, write these on a sheet of paper, ask yourself. Number 1, are you clear on the minimum number of deals and revenue, not either or, deals and revenue that your reps need, that your reps must close weekly? What's your weekly number? How many deals? How much revenue? Because you need to hit one of those two. Either the minimum, you always need to hit the minimum amount of revenue, but depending on what different offers, projects you have, which can vary a lot in trades, hit that revenue number regardless of the number of deals. And then that's a whole nother data set you can look at, because if you're hitting your revenue with certain types of projects, maybe you need to optimize the other ones or change the price or eliminate them or raise prices on it. Number 2, do you track sales consistency, not just volume? How consistent is it? Don't have big swings month to month. Number 3, is your compensation plan attracting real closers or just warm bodies? Meaning, if you have a decent salary of 40, 50,000 a year for a salesperson, depending on your industry, like Kirk said, you may be attracting people who only need to make 70, 80, so they'll sell a minimum just to hit that number. Most industries have a minimal salary, minimum wage, or just above, and then the rest of it is commission. So you attract hungry people. A good salesperson doesn't care what their monthly draw is, because they know they're going to sell. Number 4, are you tolerating underperformers and underperformance because you're afraid of disrupting culture? Here's a little insight. If you have underperformers, your culture already sucks. So get rid of the underperformers, get some top performers, go ahead and create the disruption, let them be mad, let them leave, treat them well, make it clear, take ownership and responsibility, but they're not going to be happy getting fired. But they don't serve your business well, and you're building a business so you can serve more people. Don't sacrifice the impact you can make for hundreds or even thousands or tens of thousands of people because you have a handful of people that you feel bad and guilty about letting go. It's your fault. Take ownership, take responsibility, make the decision that's best for the business and best for the people that you created your business to serve, which is you and your family and the community that and the marketplace that you're looking to deliver value to. And then finally, number 5, if you fired your worst performer today, would your business suffer or would it improve? If you took you know who your worst performer is already. First person that comes to mind. You already know them. You don't have to think about it. If you fired them today, would your business actually suffer or would you just feel bad and need a hug? If that's the case, fire them, go get a hug, then get over yourself and get back to work. Find some hunter killers. I know that's brutally honest and yeah, I'm tapering it a little bit, but that's the reality of building a business. You've got people to take care of, and sometimes you got to sacrifice the few to take care of the many. In business, don't apply that anywhere else. I'm just talking business. So with that, we'll open it up to questions. If this was valuable for you, subscribe, drop a comment, and we'll drop the questions will be in the description of this video if you're watching on YouTube or somewhere else on social media. So I appreciate you guys, and we'll see you on the next episode.